Hey folks, welcome to unit number 4, focusing on Essay 3 and Week 8. Now, just like I have in previous units, I'm going to assign the essay this week, and it'll be due at the end of the unit. That's November 12th, if recollection serves. Double check that date. Okay. So this week, watch your weekly video. Listen to the Science versus Artificial Sweetener podcast. So this is located in the Real Research Podcast and Discussion section. If you click here, it'll take you just to a place where you can hit the play button inside of D2L, and it'll play this podcast. It's about 25 minutes long. If you want to sit at your computer, or you happen to have your phone up, or an iPad, or what have you, you can just hit play there. It should work without a problem. If you want to be able to listen to the podcast when you're, say, at the gym or going somewhere, you can go to the website, and it gives you all the kind of places you can go to download the podcast. Just make sure you get the Science versus Artificial Sweeteners one. This is Science versus Website. It's a podcast, comes out weekly, looking at scientific evidence on common beliefs. Okay. So that is, I want you to listen to that podcast. However you want to do it. Like I said, you can sit at your computer and do it, but if you want to just use a podcasting app on your phone, you can go this way and find it there. Okay. Then we've got a research discussion. This is the second round of research discussions. Okay, so I just went over there. This is going to be set up by groups just like it was last time, so it'll work the same way. You'll only have access to your own group's stuff. If you don't see anything, it's because no one in your group has posted yet. So for this one, I want you to think about the ways in which both the sample essay 2 from last week and the Nature Science versus podcast, excuse me, it should be Science versus podcast, are different from the types of research writing you've been taught to do. In a post, highlight some of the key differences you saw and what you thought of them. In other words, last week's sample essay wasn't a research essay per se, but it talked about research. I want you to think about how that essay is different from other types of essays you've been taught, and how the Science versus podcast does research in a way that might be different from what you were taught to do in English 101 or in high school. Okay, so that's what I want you to think about for the discussion board. Now, the second part of this week's work is the introduction of and proposal for Essay 3. So these pieces, the sample, the proposal, and the drop box for the proposal, are much like you saw in Essay 2. Please do take a look at all of them. They might be a little bit different. And there's a sample Essay 3 here, a proposal that kind of focuses on the sort of thing that I would expect for this essay. Let's go ahead and go into the assignment, though. I'll go through that before we finish up for this week. So the idea for this assignment came to me when I started hearing stories that were verifiable, I saw people sharing stories that are verifiably false, okay, or simple oversimplifications of the truth, okay? We see this on Facebook, on Twitter, and this is obviously something that our president charges folks with, fake news, right? The concept that people are sharing things that aren't fully true, at the very least. But these sorts of news stories, and seeing them shared via Facebook, via Twitter, those sorts of things, started me thinking that we get a huge portion of our news and information from sources that did not exist a generation ago. Okay, so you think your parents could read things in the newspaper, they could watch news on TV, they could go to the library, they could talk to the neighbors, but this is pretty much it. That was being information literate. But today we have access to a lot more information, and we're smarter for it, but it also means that we also have access to information that might be incorrect, and it's a lot more easy to pass incorrect information around. Okay, so, for example, was a belief that vaccines are unsafe, that they cause autism. Thank you to Jenny McCarthy, who shared that with America. And that study, the one study that was out there, was recanted for being falsifying data. Okay, the notion that the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, limits cancer care to those over 75. Sarah Palin made this argument for a long time. It's simply not true. Okay. In some portions of society, these ideas took hold, though, and became what Stephen Colbert would call truthy. If enough people believe it, it's simply true. So for Essay 3, I want you to investigate one of these types of claims. If you have Facebook or if you have Twitter and you have friends or you follow people who post things like this, I want you to start looking for sort of a viral news story, okay? I don't want anything local, because it can be really hard to identify that. So don't think about like a local viral story, but something that's sort of like big and broad, okay? Things like one weird trick to reduce your chances of having a heart attack. That would be a perfect sort of thing. I saw something shared on Facebook just the other day about how blue light from our cell phones will damage your eye cells. It'll actually cause permanent long-term damage to your ability to see. Okay, that's the sort of thing I want you to look for when it comes to a viral news story. So you need to, for Essay 3, you need to find a viral news story. If you don't have Facebook, you don't have Twitter, you don't spend any time seeing things other people share, I gave you a couple options here for sources that you could look at as possibilities, okay? Breitbart has really gotten political, and so if you want to avoid politics, I would definitely avoid Breitbart. Alternet and Mother Jones are both really good options as well. There's plenty of others out there, okay? So find a single article that you think looks somewhat believable, somewhat questionable, and then identify the claims made in the article, and then start asking questions about those claims, okay? I want you to propose the claims you'd like to investigate. So, for example, I might say this article claims that blah, 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 and I want to know if this is really true. Okay? Your job in the essay is to identify whether or not news or information presented in the news is accurate by doing research. So this is our first real-life research assignment. We're starting with a question. Is this article accurate? And we're trying to answer the question. Okay? In some ways, it's similar to Essay 1, where we started with a popular article and looked at whether or not they did a good job of summarizing the scholarly study. But in this case, we're going to take a look at a popular article and do research from many different sources and try to identify whether the claims made in that popular article are correct. Okay? If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. And if you've got a few articles and you're not sure which ones work, don't hesitate to send me a bunch of links and say, hey, can you give me a little bit of feedback here on what might work? I'm glad to help. My experience with this essay is if you find a story that supports good research, it's going to work really well. If you get a story that's so far out there, there's no research, or that is just not viral enough, not questionable enough, it's just simply fact, those are the two things that are problematic. So I want to make sure that you are successful, so don't hesitate to shoot me any questions you've got as you're getting prepared for this essay, okay? As always, hit me up if you've got questions.